This evening, calls for entire government to resign over Keith Scott's comments about Amerindian land ownership. Guyana stands ready to assist Caribbean islands hit by Hurricane Irma. Finger-pointing between government and opposition leader over recent oil meetings. Government will not ban single mothers from working the night shift. In the region, UK government sends ships with relief supplies for Hurricane Irma victims. And internationally, US seeks extradition of Russian man.
From Safe TV headquarters in South Rival Gardens, this is Safe TV Headline News with George Gonzalez.
Headline News is now being streamed live on our YouTube channel. Join us. Opposition leader Barrett Jagdeo believes that the entire government shares the controversial views expressed by Junior Minister Keith Scott when he spoke on Amerindian land ownership. You will recall that the minister has suggested that the Amerindians are unreasonable to want to have their land ownership increased. Wendell Jeffrey has been following the story and filed this report.
So if anyone is to resign, it is maybe the government should resign, if anyone. Why? Because it's the government's view. It's the government's view.
That was former President Barrett Jagdeo. He was responding to a question that I asked him about whether or not Junior Minister Keith Scott should resign or be fired by President Granger over the remarks he made in Parliament about the Amerindians. In an exclusive interview with me last week, Lennox Schumann, the Deputy Grand Chief of Guyana's Indigenous Peoples and Representative Chief of the Pacurai.
It is not only derogatory, it is outright, it borders very, very heavily on racism. I would tell you from the NTC side now, that if some sanction is not meted out against Keith Scott for his irresponsible remarks, then you are going to have to deal with it. Is when a minister of government insults Indigenous peoples and refuses to apologize.
Today in his press conference, the PPP General Secretary enumerated the gravity of Mr. Keith Scott's utterance.
Keith Scott stood up in the Parliament. He said that they are less than patriotic. We shouldn't give them lands basically on the border because they may not defend the state. He said they must not have subsurface rights. He said if they get more land, then all the oil and gas wealth must be for coastal people. Amerindians who may not be the first people in some cases.
The opposition leader then went on to make the case that Minister Scott's comments should not be taken in isolation.
I believe that Keith Scott may have been even given the speech to read in Parliament.
The former president believes that Junior Minister Scott's missive is the policy of the current administration.
And I've not heard a single word of condemnation from anyone in the Parliament from their side, nor have I heard the president saying that's not my position. So I think Keith Scott is irrelevant in the sense of the issues. If the president felt strongly that Keith Scott did not represent the views of his government, he should have made a public statement immediately.
Mr. Jagdeo suggested that these attitudes of the government will harm race relations in Guyana, particularly between the Amerindians and the Afro-Guyanese.
The government has endorsed in several speeches, including one by Minister Scott, in Parliament, some of the more extreme positions that could become a wedge between Amerindians of Guyana and the other races, particularly Afro-Guyanese, and we must fight this.
Minister Scott's office has reached out to us, but has so far declined to be interviewed. For Channel 2 Headline News, I am Wendell Jeffrey.
Thanks, Wendell. Following a recent meeting between the Ministry of Social Protection and a group of private security firms, it was revealed that many of the female guards who work the night shift are single mothers. This fact disturbed the minister within the Ministry of Social Protection, Keith Scott. Minister Scott then moved to establish some sort of protection for these women. It was interpreted by many as a move to ban single mothers from working the night shift. Today, Minister of State Joseph Harmon spoke to the Department of Public Information in order to clarify the government's position on the matter.
In relation to the question about a night work ban for women working in private security companies, I wish to say that the Ministry of Social Protection is responsible for the protection of all Guyanese, including women. And therefore, it is quite appropriate for them to express concerns about the conditions under which women work at night. But what I want to say is that there is no policy position approved by Cabinet where there is to be a ban on any females working in security services at night. And that is to say that women will continue to work either day or night, and there is no restriction on them. There is no restriction on their right to work. What we will ask and we will insist is that the employers who employ women under any circumstance must ensure that the conditions under which they work, that they provide for the special arrangements which have to do with a woman in the employment or in the workforce.
President David Granger has committed Guyana's support for Caribbean states, which have been affected by Hurricane Irma. The government of Guyana stands in solidarity with the people of the hurricane-ravaged territories of the Caribbean, and President Granger expresses condolences to his colleague heads of government and residents of the affected states, as well as the relatives of those who lost their lives as a result of this storm. Minister of State Joseph Harmon, who is responsible for the disaster relief agency, the Civil Defense Commission, or CDC, informed that Guyana stands ready to lend technical and other forms of support. Coming up on Headline News after the break, we'll tell you why the public is in the dark about ExxonMobil's discussion with the government and the leader of the opposition. More news when we return. Stay with us.
John Lewis Styles proudly introduces Everest Bags, a complete and affordable line especially suited for back to school. Lunch bags from $3,500, backpacks from $4,500, pulley backpacks from $10,995. Also available are messenger bags, computer bags, waist pouches, duffel bags, gym bags, and even camping bags, all for the same price or less than buying online. And it's already here on Waterloo Street. John Lewis Styles, simply different.
On Sunday, September 10, 2017, the Central Housing and Planning Authority is inviting residents of A and B Fields, Sophia, to a public consultation at the Sophia Primary School. The consultation will address the reformulation of the road network upgrade and expansion program. The project, which will be undertaken through a loan from the Inter-American Development Bank, entails road upgrades with streetlights and sidewalks, upgrades to playgrounds and community buildings, and subsidies for construction of poor houses and home improvements. Starting time 16 hours.
This place is really hot. What's wrong with your AC?
It's not working.
Well, we wouldn't be able to continue this meeting anymore because this place is extremely hot.
Wait, please don't go.
Here's a company you can call to get your AC fixed. Action Cool.
Honey, what's for dinner? I had a hard day.
I'm sorry you had a hard day, but guess what, babes? I didn't cook today because the stove is not working.
Having trouble at home or at the office? Then call the professionals at Action Cool. Our fully trained technical team have the skills and experience in repairs of all air-conditioned units, refrigerators, gas stoves, washing machines, and a whole lot more. For further information, visit us at 86 Hill and Princess Street, Mandela Avenue, Georgetown, or call us on telephone number 225-7867.
ride around town and beyond? Look no further than Oasis Ride Taxi Service. With affordable prices and some of the best drivers in the business, we've been delivering prompt and reliable service to Guyana for over 16 years. We also offer tours, chauffeur service, and even car rentals. You can call us at 231-5554 or 225-5496. For deals, specials, and more information, find our page on Facebook, Oasis Ride Taxi Service. Let's go.
Welcome to Kissoon's Furniture. Find everything you need for your home and more under one roof in our newly decorated showroom. Our locally crafted furniture has been perfected over the last 60 years. From our hands to your home, we also bring to you our newly introduced lines of imported furniture and sleep center, where you can find a wide range of beds and mattresses. Kissoon's Furniture, furnishing homes for over 60 years.
Welcome back. The contract meetings and plans involving ExxonMobil continue to be clouded in secrecy. Recently, a high-level government team traveled to Texas to meet the oil giant, and subsequently, discussions were held with opposition leader Bharat Jagdeo. However, both the government and opposition are reluctant to share the outcome of the separate discussions. Here is Wendell Jeffrey.
Minister Jordan had said in one of his press conferences that the terms of the ExxonMobil contract were locked in due to what President Jagdeo had negotiated with the oil giant. Minister Jordan lamented the notion that this new administration was only able to squeeze out another 1% royalties from Exxon, up from the 1% that Jagdeo had negotiated. Mr. Jordan had also said that his government cannot release the contract because Mr. Jagdeo had agreed to several confidentiality clauses that would make the release of the contract a breach of the contract. So at the PPP press conference held on August 28th, I specifically asked the opposition leader if it was indeed a fact that he placed a confidentiality clause into the mobile contract. Here was that interaction. Did you indeed put a confidentiality clause in the ExxonMobil contract?
Most contracts have confidentiality clauses that govern the negotiating period.
He went on to say that there was a confidentiality clause, but that this government can now release the contract because the negotiations are over. However, at his press conference today, Mr. Jagdeo said that the current administration is blaming him for something he never did.
So I'll just go through a couple of things. For example, the Kiteshore News, July 23rd to 2017. The Natural Resources Minister insisted that the entire act, including the non-disclosure clause added by former President Bharat Jagdeo in 1997, is under review.
The opposition leader reminded that he was not the president in 1997.
Now, you know, in 1997, I was not president, and I did not have responsibility for this sector. AFC government officials say that the contracts cannot be released because contained in them are strict non-disclosure clauses which were signed into by the PPP. It insists that these obviously have to be adhered to. Meanwhile, the APNU government officers say that all contracts should be released once they do not infringe upon security issues. And this is what he said. The initial exploration license was issued in 2008 by the then president of Guyana at the time and now leader of the opposition, Bharat Jagdeo. His government would have issued the original license with the original agreement in which the confidentiality clause was inserted. This is Ramjatan speaking. He admitted that there are challenges with the contract, but said, direct quote, "We are doing everything in view of a history of where the contract is literally made secret. an amendment of the law passed by the Jagdeo administration in 2011 now. It is important we understand that we are trying our best to come out of what, knowing very well that when we have a big company like ExxonMobil, we have demanded, obviously, during those early days in the exploration agreement that it made secret, and Jagdeo and his boys allowing them that to happen and then passing along.
However, Mr. Jagdeo is contending that the ongoing secrecy and the refusal of the current administration to release the contract was not his fault. He then reached back to a document which he said President Hoyt enacted while president.
This act was signed by President Desmond Hoyt in 1986. The principal act in 4.1, restriction of disclosure of information, says, subject to subsection 2, no information furnished or information in a report submitted pursuant to this act by a licensee shall be disclosed to any person who is not a minister, a public officer.
That Mr. Jagdeo has unearthed now begs many questions, namely these two. If the Extractive Act signed by then President Desmond Hoyt prohibits disclosure of contractual agreements, why did the coalition, while in opposition, ask for the PPP to Extractive Act of 1986 prohibits the disclosure of contractual matters? Why is he now calling on the coalition to release the said contract?
It wasn't specific to ExxonMobil contract. It's normal. However, when the contract is concluded, because in that concluded, there is nothing in no country in the world that says if it involves public resources, then they shouldn't be made public.
For Channel 2 Headline News, I am Wendell Jeffrey.
Thanks, Wendell. Representatives from a seminar on Wednesday organized by Guyana chapter of the Institute of Internal Auditors. Here's more. Internal auditors perform a necessary role and in an effort to provide improved services. A seminar hosted by the Guyana chapter of the Institute of Internal Auditors opened on the public and private sector gathered to attend the two-day seminar. Fazil Bacchus, chairman of the Professional Development Committee of the Guyana chapter of the Institute of Internal Auditors, emphasized the importance of such an event for the professionals present.
The context in which this seminar is planned is very uncharted exposures such as oil and gas. We all are aware of that. It is natural that such exposures will inevitably have a risk. Hence, the need for compliance, adherence to controls, and the necessity for the role of the internal auditors to evolve.
It is abundantly clear. Oil will bring unprecedented changes to the Guyanese economy. Because the source of the nation's wealth would be managed by a small group of individuals, the role of an internal auditor will be of even greater importance. Accurate record keeping could be considered one of the best forms of fighting corruption. In order to ensure good record keeping, an auditor must not only have an understanding of numbers, but also the specific industry being examined.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's for you to understand which industry you are in, and what affects you at a policy level, and which industry you have invested in, and what affects your income.
Today, it is the second. Don't go away, still ahead. The UK's response to Hurricane Irma. Stay with us. The ride around town and beyond? Look no further than Oasis Ride Taxi Service. Years. We also offer tours, chauffeur service, and even car rentals. You can call us at 231-5554 or 225-5496. For deals, specials, and more information, find our page on Facebook, Oasis Ride Taxi Service. Let's go.
and B fields Sophia to a public consultation at the Sophia Primary School. The consultation will address the reformulation of the road network upgrade and expansion program. The project, which will be undertaken through a loan from the Inter-American Development Bank, entails road upgrades with streetlights and sidewalks, upgrades to playgrounds and showers.
Welcome to Kissoon's Furniture. Find everything you need for your home and more under one roof in our newly decorated showroom. Our locally crafted furniture has been perfected over the last 60 years. From our hands to your home, we also bring to you our newly introduced lines of imported furniture and sleep center, where you can find a wide range of beds and mattresses. Kissoon's Furniture, furnishing homes for over 60 years.
Well, we wouldn't be able to continue this meeting anymore because this place is extremely hot.
Wait, please don't go.
Here's a company you can call to get your AC fixed. Action Cool.
Honey, what's dinner? I had a hard day.
I'm sorry you had a hard day, but guess what, babes? I didn't cook.
Our fully trained technical team have the skills and experience in repairs of all air-conditioned units, refrigerators, gas stoves, washing machines, and a whole lot more. For further information, visit us at 86 Hill and Princess Street, Mandela Avenue, Georgetown, or call us on telephone number 225-7867.
Suited for back to school. Lunch bags from $3,500, backpacks from $4,500, pulley backpacks from $10,995. Also available are messenger bags, computer bags, waist pouches, duffel bags, gym bags, and even camping bags. All for the same price or less than buying online. And it's already here on Waterloo.
Welcome back. In news from the region, the UK government has dispatched ships to help British overseas territories recover from Hurricane Irma. Here's more in this BBC report.
Latest pictures from St. Martin. This is an island that comprises the French territory of Saint Martin and the Dutch section of St. Martin, and it has suffered terrible damage, as you can see. The high winds of up to 225 miles an hour and the wind bringing devastation. The French Prime Minister has said 4 people have been found dead on the island so far. No one found dead on St. Bart's, which is a neighbouring island, but it is being described as an enormous catastrophe. 95% of the island is destroyed, according to one top official on St. Martin. The airport, which is the third largest in the Caribbean, has been all but razed to the ground. The houses without roofs, pleasure boats on land. The Prime Minister of Holland, Mark Rutte, saying the island is not reachable at this point because of the huge damage to the airport and to the harbour. Efforts, according to the French Interior Ministry, are underway to get supplies into St. Martin and to St. Bart's. Recovery mission may be some way off. Of course, eyes are now diverting towards the next hurricane to hit the region, which is Hurricane Jose, which is gathering in strength, not as big as Hurricane Irma at the moment, but with the warm sea temperatures, the fear is that Hurricane Jose will keep you updated, and any more pictures that come through, we'll bring them to you. European governments responding to that hurricane. A short time ago, the Defence Secretary here, Michael Fallon, spoke following a COBRA meeting on the crisis.
I chaired a meeting of the Emergency COBRA Committee. These are our people, they're British nationals, and we're going to do everything possible to get help to them in this appalling devastation that the hurricane has caused, and to help in advance of the hurricane that's coming behind it. Now, we already have a ship in the area. Mounts Bay is there. She's already at work with her helicopters and her task force, a task group of several hundred troops, Marines, needed for reconstruction after the hurricane has passed.
Can you give us an idea from your meeting today the scale of the task ahead of these troops who are heading out to help?
Well, the hurricane has devastated. It's taken out power, it's flattened buildings. We were told today that it's even flat ever to strike these islands. And the governors themselves don't know what the situation is in some of the outlying areas because there aren't work helping the people of Anguilla, helping to clear roads, helping to restore power and get an accurate picture for that governor of exactly what's happening on the island. So we're there and we're helping, but obviously this is a huge challenge. More help is going to be needed, and that's what we've authorised today. We're out of touch with the centre in a number of these territories, but these are British people, these are British nationals, and we're going to help them as much as we can.
Michael, and 6,000 people are in shelters. Our correspondent Laura Bicker is there.
As the hurricane came through, the streets of Puerto Rico emptied. People took shelter and there was real concerns as the wind at points it sounded like a jet engine, but thankfully and mercifully the eye of the saved many lives, because as people emerged this morning the damage is not as devastating as has been feared. The main problem here has been power. There are nearly 1 million people without electricity, 22 hospitals are relying on generators, and the power company had already warned before the storm went through that it may be some time before that power went back on, around 4 to 6 months they had warned. The authorities are still trying to get in touch with many of those in remote areas of this island, and there has been some destruction and there has been some major flooding in some parts, but there is a collective sigh of relief that they have escaped the devastation wrought by Hurricane Irma in parts of the Eastern Caribbean.
RT reports.
The US government is pushing for the extradition of a Russian national accused of cybercrime and money laundering. Alexander Vinnik was arrested in Greece on the 25th of July at the request of the US Justice Department. He is accused of using an extradition request. Mr. Vinnik spoke by phone from prison in his first interview since his arrest.
I would say they are mistaken. I don't have any planes, yachts, or any other luxury possessions. I'm a Russian citizen.
The Russian Foreign Ministry has said it is closely monitoring the situation and the priority is to ensure that the suspect's rights are respected. Mr. Vinnik's wife, Alexandra, also spoke to RT, giving further details about her husband's detention.
I turned around and saw that my husband took part in his arrest. He was handcuffed. Our children were there at the time. These men walked him away. They also took mobile phones and the key to our hotel room from my bag. As far as I know, they searched the room. Me and my children were kept on the beach from 11 in the morning until 7 p.m. Documents sent from the US. The BTC's activities were against the law there. The document says the managers knew they were creating a platform for money laundering because it wasn't registered, it didn't have a license, and because such business models allow criminals to use the exchange. All the charges are being made based on the state. Wives hid their husbands with them. It's the same thing. Obviously, his return to Russia is my main goal. My husband agrees to be extradited only to Russia and no other country. He wants to come home to his family, to his children.
And now for the weather report. And that's Channel 2 Headline News for this Thursday evening. As we take our leave, you can tune in tomorrow morning at 6:30 for a rebroadcast, and tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock for more news. For now, I'm George Gonzalez, signing out from this newscast, saying thank you for welcoming us into your homes, and you have a blessed evening.